All right, welcome guys. Happy Tuesday night.
Today we are a full-service advertising agency. The company is called the Symphony Agency. We are one of the largest ad agencies in the Tampa Bay area. We've got about 20 team members and are growing very rapidly. We specialize in the healthcare arena, and then we also have another division of our company called Blue Local that is dedicated to home services. We're a premier partner for the Carrier Corporation, which most people are familiar with. So we do a lot of air conditioning and plumbing, electric companies on that side of the company. So healthcare and home services is what we kind of specialize in, and we've got a really cool team.
Perfect, I appreciate that. So time is money, and I appreciate you coming out here and dedicating Tuesday night with us. So tell us, why is it important that you're here tonight on Tuesday to help our audience on Facebook and also in person with what you've learned? Like why is it important to you to be here today?
Well, when you sent me these questions, this is literally one of my favorites, because I think this is a question that I like to look at anything and everything that I'm doing to figure out, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
And for me, this 1 hour of my day, sure, I could be spending time on that proposal that I need to do, or spending time finalizing some project. But at the end of the day, if any one person who sees this on Facebook Live or in this room can take one of my lessons learned and implement it in what they're doing to avoid my mistakes, that could catapult a business. And when businesses grow, means more jobs are created and the community grows, and that's what I'm really, really passionate about. So that's what this hour is to me.
No, that's why we're all here today. I mean, I love doing these things to help people out, inspire people, just give them something to say, look, like what I've gone through, what you've gone through, and I said, if they can walk away with one thing and they've learned something and put that to use here, whether in St. Pete or Tampa, wherever you are, and that's really the end of the day, like, to get something out of this.
Yeah.
So overall, what is your number one lesson learned in your experience so far to date?
So if I had to narrow it down to just one, I would say that surrounding yourself with a strong support network, whether that be business partners, whether that be the team of people that you work with, whether that be family and friends, and building those relationships and making sure you're spending the time to build those relationships is really critical, because at the end of the day, when you're the face of a company that's grown, like, I get a lot of credit for a lot of stuff, but the reality is that no one person can possibly accomplish as much as you want to, and you've got to have a team behind you to back that.
So in terms of a team, I've been in recruiting and talent. How do you find talent? Like what are some secrets that you use when you're out there sourcing talent to work for you, that you have to have this great support network? What do you really look for in a team, like, to help with the culture and everything you've created with Symphony?
Sure. Well, first, if you have a team and you don't have an HR system, Bamboo HR is the tool that we use, and it's super cheap and it's freaking fantastic for recruiting. It has like a whole system in place for it from an HR perspective. So we use that tool as like for our processes around our people and our teams. But from a recruitment standpoint, we've been really, really blessed. We get a lot of media coverage from the Tampa Bay Business Journal and the Business Observer, talking about things that we're doing, whether it's, I just ran a half marathon, so the Business Observer covered that. And so people get to kind of see our culture through the media, and we also share that stuff on social media. Shameless plug, if you're on Facebook Live, like our social media at Symphony Agency. But from a standpoint of people just getting to see who we are and what our culture is like most of that comes through social media, and that's how people say they find us.
Perfect. So you've grown your business, I see, from where you started to having 20-some team members today. How have you grown so quickly in that short period? And again, like, what keys would you say have you come up with to being a great boss?
Being a great boss. I think that depends on who you're talking to.
You have some employees in here so that they can vouch for you, right?
I think that's an ever-going thing. So when I started, I was in college. I never had a real job, not a big kid job anyway. I think like my last job would say like bartender at the Blue Rooster, if I had a resume. So I didn't really have a whole lot of experience with what a big kid boss is going to look like or is done well. So I probably fall on my face a lot as far as being like a boss, especially as like a millennial. But I feel like I'm always trying.
Yeah.
So, but from a standpoint of being a great boss, I think the things that what I've learned are important are a level of transparency, but not too transparent so that you like give too much weight to your team. I think one of the things that I failed at early on, and probably one of the things that I would point to is one of my biggest failures as a boss or as a leader of the team, is that one of the things that I really, really care about is that our employees love that they work with us and that they're well taken care of. And I had a lot of misconceptions about what it would mean as a small business to implement healthcare for our team and insurances. And I had no idea how complicated it really was, or what type of like investment that would mean and what type of long-term investment that would mean. Because one of the biggest things is if you're going to give a benefit, you can't take it away, because then you're like the worst boss ever, right? So we had a stage in our growth where we weren't measuring well enough. And we were hiring people because it felt like we needed more, we needed more help. We had new clients. And one of the things that we talked about openly with the team was, we're starting to look into health insurance, and this is exciting, and we're pumped about this. And we had everything in place, and it was getting ready to pull the trigger on it. And overnight, one of our clients went under. They had a financial crisis internally. It didn't matter that we had a contract with them. They couldn't pay. And we lost 20 to 30% of our business overnight. So no longer was insurance a big deal. What was a big deal is how are we going to pay the team that we had staffed to maintain this client? And because I had told them about the insurance thing, it's been like, and we're totally going to make it happen. When? I'm making no promises. But from a standpoint of learning as a leader, that was a time when I really learned like everything that you say as a leader has to be something that you know that you can back up immediately. Because if you can't, or if it falls through, then your just overall team's expectations fall through, and that hurts the culture. So that would be probably one of the lessons learned, learning that like balance between being transparent about what's going on and things that you're excited about in the business, and setting appropriate expectations so that you don't have, the disconnect.
Gotcha. And can you tell us, I've been in your office, you guys have a great office, open environment. What lessons have you learned from the culture you've created? Like, how did you create that culture at Symphony where it is kind of, you can explain it better than I can, but it's just different than corporate America, I guess.
Totally. So when you're not offering insurance benefits and some of the other things that the big corporations can do, there are a lot of things that you can do to help supplement those. So one of the things that we do, and it's just been really cool across the board because it's helped create part of our culture, is creating a very flexible work schedule. So from a standpoint, not only do we like totally understand human needs, we've got like your basic PTO and stuff in place, but we're real flexible with it. So we don't have like a standard 9 to 5 where you have to come in. Of course, we have some roles that come in earlier and some who come in and stay really late, but it's very flexible from that standpoint. We have a culture committee, which is probably one of the coolest things that I kind of like accidentally fell into maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. So we were doing a lot of like fun team events, and the team started like throwing in suggestions of things that they wanted to do versus it just being something that like I was initiating. And at a point in the business where I got too busy to handle like the day-to-day of like margarita day or whatever it may be, the team, we talked about it and they were like, yeah. It was like, well, let's just make a culture committee. So now we have a team of like anywhere between 4 to 6 people who meet on a monthly basis. They get together, they go through like the social media calendars and think about like cool, fun things that we could do. And they've got a set budget, so they don't have to get anything approved. And they create these like cool, fun like get-togethers. Like last month we went and did one of those escape rooms as a team, and that was really fun, and the team wanted to do that. This coming week, we've got Easter coming up, and apparently there's like some big Easter fun thing that they've got planned in the office on Friday. So allowing them to be involved in the culture and what we're doing and how we're like crafting that is really critical.
Perfect. So next question is, so when you envision, I guess when you started this business, from where you started at the very beginning to where you are today, is this kind of what you dreamed of, or is this totally different than what you started with back in the day?
We were just laughing about this on the way over. So we talked about 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, we were in Fusion, which is just down the road from here, the apartment complex. And my dad is part of our business. He's actually in the back of the room. Shout out to the guy in the blue shirt. But he was the financial genius and operations genius behind the business. And that was really critical from the very beginning. And obviously, as we grow, is even more critical. But what I was good at was the sales and marketing side. So he supported us on that side. But we would meet in the Fusion conference room, and we would talk about, okay, if I can only sell $5,000 of services this month, that would be like the end all be all. And now looking back, thinking that was 5 years ago, could I have possibly said that we would be where we're sitting at now with, millions in annual sales? And no, I could absolutely not have told you that. I think that's what we wanted. But to envision what that actually would look like coming to fruition, it's definitely different. There are moments. So we opened a new office space about 1.5 years ago, and it's 7,000 square feet. It's huge. We did this cool build out. It's awesome. It's everything that our brand is. Like if you look at our website and walk into our offices, you basically walked into our website. It's really cool. But during that process, there are still days when I walk into the office and turn on the lights and I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. This is so cool. So it's 5 years is a long way.
Well, and let's fast forward to 2023. So when you guys have I'm sure you guys have some type of planning committee, or you and the executive team.
Sure.
What is the vision for 5 years down the road? Again, you learned a lot in the last 5 years, and how are you going to apply what you've learned in 5 years to the next 5 years?
Sure. Measurement has been a huge thing that we've learned. So that has been part of what has catapulted our growth moving forward, from a standpoint of measuring, resources, measuring the team's time, making sure that we're really looking at each of those things. But from a standpoint of 5 years from today, we are already starting to create some of our own technology products. So we have an in-house development team at Symphony, and we want to be building more technology products that service our clients, especially to help improve their efficiencies from a standpoint of internal teams. So more technology products that have the Symphony name on it that we're actually selling as products is part of our 5-year goals, primarily 3-year goals, but we'll go with 5. And then also just continuing to expand what we're doing with our current, most of our business, we specialize in healthcare, and we do branding, and then technology and marketing. So expanding that vertical and really expanding that nationally. Okay.
And I always like to talk about work-life balance of, you gotta have some type of balance between your work life and personal life and everything else.
Yeah.
And you work with your husband.
Yes.
So can you tell us what have you learned when you have to work with your spouse and you see them all the time? From that experience, those experiences, can you tell us some stories of the good, bad, and everything in between?
Good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah.
I hear people say balance all the time when they ask me about working with my husband, Daniel. But from a reality, a lot of people will say, make sure that you separate your office time and your work time and take time. All of it's so commingled that it's not very realistic. But that being said, we create other hobbies. We both love to travel. So we'll set something on the books, whether it's a short weekend or, 20 days in Jamaica. We really like Jamaica. Yeah. And then also one of the things that we've picked up within the last 1.5 years or so is we both enjoy running. Yeah. So we'll pick a destination and go do a half marathon, or we're training for the full marathon in Iceland in this August. So having those things that are hobbies that are outside of the workplace is really important.
And can you tell us, what's the story behind picking Iceland to go do a marathon in?
Oh, the story about how we ended up picking Iceland to go to a marathon is that about 1.5 years ago, Daniel decided that we were going to start running. And I thought this was a horrible idea. He's a natural runner. I am not. I had every excuse under the planet. I was like, I don't have the body type for this. Like, I need to lose a lot of weight to do this. I don't like to run. Let's just start with the basics. And he was like, we're going to do it anyway. We'll just start with a 5K. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. So I started like with my app that helped me like walk for a little bit and then jog for a little bit. And finally I got to the point where we ran our first 5K and I got it done. It was a thing and he booked like the next 3. So after that, he had already put on his schedule that he was going to run a full marathon. It was on his bucket list. I made it very clear that was not on my bucket list. But about a month later, he comes to me one day and he's like, Lauren, I just got this amazing email. And I'm like, really? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, okay, tell me about it. He's like, so I emailed the people over at Disney and told them that you have a really good social media following and that you could raise a lot of money, and they opened up a spot for you in the sold out Disney Princess half marathon. I'm like, I don't want to run a half marathon. And he was like, but they opened a special spot for you and you get to dress like a princess. So, of course, I ended up running the half marathon at the Disney Princess. That was like last month. I really, really enjoyed it. And when you're doing something like that, it's just like this amazing feeling to be able to accomplish something like that. And with being as obnoxiously addicted to work as I am, it's great to have a hobby that pushes you in a different way. So it's pushing me physically versus just being in a computer all the time. And so because of that, about halfway through my half marathon training, I was like, well, if I'm going to sit in a boardroom and tell people that I've done a half marathon, I don't want to be the loser that's like, I only did it halfway. So that's the reason we decided to do the full marathon and going all in.
That's great. And of course, for everyone who follows, like we see your stories on social media, and I said with the Business Observer that it's good to have that balance of doing stuff outside of work, and obviously maintain physically fit and working in that as well.
Yeah.
So next question: how are you going to save the world? What's your plan? Obviously, there's a lot of different dilemmas out there in the world. Outside from running this company and running marathons, what else are you up to help other people or just make the planet a better place?
So one of the things that I'm really passionate about, and this is so perfect since I'm in the Millennial series, I am on the older side of the Millennials. I'm a couple years under, just crossing the barrier. But one of the things that I think is so cool about the Millennial generation is the fact that we're the first generation that really grew up with the internet. And the internet is massively changing the world from a standpoint of pretty much everything. And the democratization that the internet has brought to companies, I think, is really going to change the landscape for what companies look like 5 and 10 years from now. So I think that the way that the world is changing, great companies will really be more focused on teams that feel like owners and more employee-owned companies. And again, don't tell my team that I just said that, considering that I'm talking about setting good expectations. But from I want to be part of that movement of moving towards a corporate workplace, of a larger workplace that is employee-owned and that has more teams that are that feel like owners and have ownership, so that we can all grow together. Because the big corporation, I think, is really going to die out over the long run.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff, especially here in St. Pete, there's a lot of co-working spaces between St. Pete and Tampa, and I think we see a lot of the bigger corporations that are seeing people rather work in working space like this, where you get outside the office and it's more low-key versus being stuck behind a cubicle.
One where you're treated like a human.
Yeah.
Because the reality is the day-to-day of a 9 to 5 just doesn't fit into real life that you want to live. And so that's why I think it's going to change, and that's what I hope to help be a pioneer for.
No, I appreciate that. And I'd like to talk about fulfillment too, that millennials, we want to have a sense of fulfillment, that there's more to life than work. We're here, we have a purpose, we have a passion, we're doing something, we have a cause we're following. So for you, like, what helps you get that sense of fulfillment every day, like whether it's through work or other stuff? Like how do you get to that sense of fulfillment when you go to bed that you've done something every day?
That's a good question. Sometimes it's simply the little things. whether it be the email that comes in. We just recently did I built this brand and vision workshop. It's like a 2-day workshop. It's really fun. We went up to New York City and did one for a client that was literally right on Times Square. It was so neat. And they sent us an email back afterwards, and they were like, best decision we've ever made. This was amazing. We actually made decisions, and like we feel like we have a direction now that we're like moving forward and after this, and we just weren't sure if we were doing the right thing. Those kind of emails I absolutely love. Getting feedback from our team. We have a new team member who just recently started, and I made a comment in our project management system saying, so thankful for you guys helping me out on this project. This was awesome. And she came up to me that afternoon and was like, thank you so much for that nice letter. And I had no idea. But like when it's the little things that like make a difference for people, I think those are the things that like drive me the most.
Definitely. And what's one piece of advice that, again, like when everyone leaves here tonight, what's one piece of advice that you really want them to take home with from this talk today?
Well, if you're growing your own business, I think probably the thing that I've been learning recently that has been critical for our continued growth is that it's really, really easy to get attached to the things that you're good at and not be very good at letting those go. And if you're the person in the business who is that growth, the person who's pushing the growth forward without letting go of those things that maybe you even love, you really can't make the impact. Because I think to me at the end of the day, no matter what our company does or what I'm doing, however I'm making the biggest impact possible is really where I'm feeling most fulfilled. So letting go of the task for me, so like I mentioned, I started in journalism and social media. And so it was really hard for me to let go of, the social media portion of our business and the copywriting portion of our business. But every time I've let go of one of those hats, pending that I've measured and know that we have the work to do, it's been another step forward for the company to really be better. One of the things that's been the most challenging for me, like I mentioned, I never had like a real like big kid job boss. So I think it's actually been really amazing to me. I've had a couple conversations with our team lately, and they're talking to me about, I feel like I can't come to you about that because it would be disrespectful or say that to you. One example, this is a perfect example. So I lead our account management team. And the other day, apparently, they were working on a meeting. They'd like booked their room, like totally like specific. They're awesome dirt people. Like they're so good at that kind of stuff. And they booked the room, the whole nine. And here come me and two of my leadership team members. We're like throwing on this fun, big conversation, like being loud and obnoxious because I'm kind of loud. And I talked to them afterwards about like 2 weeks later. We were talking about a completely different subject. And I was like, guys, when you have issues like this, just come to me. It's not a big deal. And they were like, well, we wouldn't ever want to disrespect you. And I'm like, wow, that's really intense. So I think most of my team simply respects me for the fact that I work my ass off. And I've gotten it to where it is. And so because of that, I'm really old. And I'm really old. That's part of it too. Like even our team members that are like at my age, like I feel really old compared to them. Maybe because I just like work all the time and I don't know anything about what the newest memes are on Snapchat or whatever. But I think it's just been established simply because I've worked my ass off and they know it. And when you're willing to get into the nitty gritty with your team, it just naturally builds respect in a way that's not like, I'm a serious manager, you have to respect me. It's more like, I've been here, I'll jump into your seat and help you get whatever done you need done. And it just kind of builds a natural respect. Yes, sir.
2 questions for you. My father was self-employed and he taught me a ton.
It's so cool.
I know has had a lot of crossover to being self-employed myself. What's one main, lesson or characteristic that your father taught you? That's my first question. Not relating to helping your company, on something, maybe as you were growing up, is there something that kind of stood out as something he taught you? That's the first question.
Okay.
Pay me to ask that.
This is a great question because I actually learned recently that this story is a little bit not true, but I'll back up and tell you the first part of it. So when I was a kid, I love shoes, like really, really love shoes. Like you'll notice I have on really cute shoes right now that have little like pearls on them and stuff. I love shoes. And my mom tells stories that when I was like literally less than like 1, I wouldn't like go out of the house without her like letting me pick out my own shoes. So when I was a kid, my parents did very well for themselves, but they were never the kind of parents who like gave you everything that you wanted, right? That was not cool. So if we wanted something outside of like our typical whatever, then we had to figure out a way to work to get it. And one of the things that my dad taught me, I remember this as being around 12, that he told me to find a niche and fill it. I didn't know what a niche was. Obviously, I was 12. But he explained, you know, when there's a problem to be solved, there's money to be had. And one of the questions that you had listed was, you know, how does a millennial know whether or not they should follow their passions about something? And that's really the answer to the question. Is there a problem to be solved? If there is, there's money to be had. And so what I did is I started ironing for my mom because she really hated to iron. And so she would give me a quarter for every single piece that I ironed. And then she told her friends about it. And so that was kind of like my first entrepreneurial story. And my dad taught me that lesson. What I found out was that apparently at like 4, I was also selling like Picasso level artwork to people for like $20 a pop, which is pretty amazing. And there are pictures to prove it, which is kind of funny. But that would be the first answer to my question. Find a niche and fill it.
So it's the second one. And it's funny because when I was growing up, my dad saying the same thing.
That's awesome.
You gotta have a niche.
Yeah.
And that was like he'd hammer it home. My second question, so like when my father taught me a bunch of things, but I know he taught me how to work. And
Yeah.
it's like, when people are like, how do you have a business? You're like, I just work a ton.
Yeah.
And that's all I dream about, sleep, that's all I do. And I still like battle with this. Do you think you could teach, like after, you know, I think it's kind of like a millennial issue too, is like work ethic. You know, you kind of have extremes, but is work ethic something you can teach after, you know, after your 20s? Have you ever like had an employee that wasn't a good worker that you trained to be a hard worker?
The positive person in me would say, absolutely. Have I seen that in actual practice? No. I feel like most people, you either want to work or you don't. And it's okay if you don't want to work. Like, you can figure out how to do, like, but you can't work at my company. Like, from us, like, work ethic is so critical. You can't grow anything or make any kind of impact if you're not willing to work your tail off. That doesn't mean you can't have balance. I'm training for a marathon right now. I run like a lot of hours a day. Like, there's balance in it, and I think there can be balance in it at any level. But like, if you can't stomach like to get what I want or to fulfill my dreams, I'm gonna have to work my ass off. This is probably not the right type of role for you. Is that too honest?
No, I've never like, I agree.
Okay, good.
You can't teach work ethic. I just always wonder, like, has anyone else ever like found ways to teach someone how to be a hard worker? I just feel like you either have or you don't.
I would agree.
What is your favorite mentorship platform?
Audible. And that's kind of, I guess, non-traditional. I'm an Audible addict. I love to read. I literally probably read at least 4 books a month. I'm actually on a hiatus a little bit right now because at some point you just have to decide I need a little break from personal growth. But on a normal month, I'll read somewhere between 4 to 6 books. I love asking people around me what are your favorite books to read. If you're getting started, Profit First. If you have not read Profit First, freaking best book. Like, God, I wish somebody had given me to that day one. Profit First is amazing. If you're building a team, Crucial Conversations and Crucial Confrontations is kick-ass because you're going to need to figure that out sooner rather than later. Those are a couple of my favorites.
That reminds me. Are you writing a book? Are you so?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Andrew.
Yeah, I asked her if she writing a book.
Yes, that is on my list of things to do, but I'm probably going to be calling Karen. because I've decided that book number one, the writer that I am, it's just not going to happen fast enough. And one of the things I like to make sure, one of the things you mentioned, platforms for growth or whatever, having some type of business mentor, whether it's a program that you're going through that has multiple business people in it, whether it's a business coach. That's one of the things that I did right really early on. Having somebody who is not integrated into your company, but has business experience who can delve into what you're actually doing is really critical. So I had a business coach before I could even afford one, really. We basically like put pennies together so that I could get a coach on board to help like me grow, because I just needed help. And then one of the things that we've done recently and our leadership team has continued to do is go through a program called Key Person of Influence. It's a really cool program that they do up in Tampa. But one of the things that they do through that program is have you write a book. And in that program that I went through, I actually built the Brand and Vision workshop that I mentioned I was up in New York recently for. And that is what I need to write my first book on. And I've already probably got all the content. It's just stuck in my head, and writing it is too painful. So I'm probably going to cheat. It's the only time I'm ever going to say that. But yes, that is on my queue this year.
Well, like, I know 2018, so I'm like, because the joke there is I've talked to Lauren before about writing a book a year and a half ago probably. And I'm like, so Lauren, I'm like, where's that book at? So
I think I have more people who would put me like in their acknowledgments of their own books, like just to spite me, than I have written of like my first book.
You'll get there.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off the book question, what's your favorite book to give to a friend? You mentioned a lot about growth. What's your number one?
What is my number one favorite book to give to a friend? Oh, that's a good question. Probably, can I answer that and show you my Audible list afterwards?
Would you please?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sharing Audible list.
Oh, I'm an Audible addict. There is a book that actually Tamika Tomlinson told me about. For those of you guys who don't know, she's really involved in the St. Pete government. And I asked her, and I want to call it the 5, I don't know, but it's really, really good. So I guess I'll put that in the comments on Facebook Live. Sorry guys, I don't remember what it's called. But it's awesome, and that's probably the one that I share with my friends most often.
I'm curious to hear what drives you. So what had you get to your first goal, let's say, $1 million in revenue or something, or whatever it is? and have you not be like, we're great, we've got a good business, let's just keep them along at this rate. But had you be like, okay, what's next?
Okay, so I'm laughing at myself because I already talked about shoes. So the first time I made our first $1 million, this is ridiculous. So a couple of years ago, we made our first $1 million, and obviously that's a huge revenue goal. I bought myself a pair of Louboutins, and they're called So Kates, and if you Google it on the internet, they're like literally the most painful shoe of like the whole world. And so now I've like got it on my list of things to do to frame them, to say wearing these shoes are just as painful as the first $1 million, so I can put them in my office. But that's not really the real answer. What drives me is that I feel like I have a internal need to make the biggest impact I can in the world. Why else are we here? And so to me, getting up every day and figuring out how I can make a bigger impact is huge to me. I just feel that very heavily internally.
That's second question, like, why are you here today, right? Why are we all here?
I mean, great communities grow and thrive when you've got businesses that are building new jobs and jobs that make the world a better place. And I know that I can build those jobs, and I'm not going to get right every time, but at the end of the day, this is the way that I can make the biggest impact, especially today.
Well, thank you, Lauren, for getting up your Tuesday night to talk to everyone here. So yeah, you guys are welcome to hang around for a little bit longer. We still have food. Jeremy, thanks again for hosting us with Skyway Media. And yeah, I appreciate your time, Lauren.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, sir.